is Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Tom Skore. And we're going to be discussing Tom's incredible book, Tranquility Moon, Where Violence Has No Voice. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, but simply type it into a search bar, man, and you're going to be greeted with a lot more. Before I go any further, I want to quickly take the opportunity and point out the fact that Tom was brought to us by Citi of Books. So for my writers out there listening in, if you've gone through your process and now you need some assistance moving that book you just spent so much time developing, head on over to citiofbooks.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is equipped to help you do just that. And people, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Tom here on the line. Listen, the discussion at hand today is going to be one that is tough to swallow. I was telling Tom in the pre-screening call, man, it's something that I'm looking forward to discussing because I know I'm not the only one screaming into the void, petrified to send my children to school. Something's not right here, people. And listen, as an artist myself, I often view art as an expression, as a potential mirror to society, and it almost makes things a little bit more palatable to see it that way. But this is much larger than just an entertaining read. Tom, first and foremost, welcome to the network, man, and thank you very much for being here. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me.
Tom, it is a pleasure. Your book is something remarkably compelling, and it's something that is going to touch so many people out there. Listen, let's jump right in. First and foremost, let's start at the foundation. Tell us a little bit more about your book, Tranquility Moon.
I see it on one hand as being a simple story about a family in a unique situation. There are two kids. There's a 10-year-old girl and a 16-year-old teenager, and there's a mom who is a doctor and works at the hospital. And then there's a father who's on a mission aboard the space station and trying to do about a year and a half to 2 years on the space station as a preparation for a Mars trip. So that's their unique situation. But on the same token, it's a story about worldwide implications in that he has an encounter with an alien who wants him to be the go-between between them on the moon and the Earth. And their simple thing is to try to help the Earth get past its violent stage.
Tom, you said something that I thought was quite powerful on the pre-screening call, man. And I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember exactly how you said it, but it was something along the lines of you want people to receive from this book the notion that it's okay to want to be safe. It's okay to not be comfortable with violence. I think it is something that gets truly to the heart of this. The book is nuanced, but I'm curious to know what inspired this particular novel.
First of all, before I say anything about that, I want to say that most of the people that have read it consider it a book of hope, that there's a lot of hope in it. And I've written it. My background is in theater, all kinds of theater. I love comedy. I've been an actor, a director, done films, and worked in professional stages, and I tried to write this book so that it would appeal to younger people, I'd say 12 on up to 80 or beyond.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to foster conversations, especially where there might be families where the children are doing active theater drills in school. It reminds me of growing up and doing nuclear war drills of crawling under my desk. And yet I wanted to foster conversations between the kids and maybe the families. The families are hunters. They've got guns in the house. What are the things that are going on at the same time? I wanted to talk about what happened the day that this story hit me. I was reading, I'd always wanted to be an astronaut in NASA, and unfortunately, the realities of the war in Vietnam, and at that time, to become an astronaut, you'd have to fly high-performance jets and drop napalm on people.
Yeah.
And by the time I was getting out of high school, McNamara had left as Secretary of Defense and was saying Vietnam was not a good war. So I had to make decisions at that time, and I went the theater route. But I'm a pilot. I've been a pilot since 1971, and when I lived in Alaska, I built my own airplane. We flew it around Alaska for 13 years. And my sister had sent me a copy of Endurance. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book. It was written by Scott Kelly, who spent a year on the space station, and his brother, Mark Kelly, who is now the senator from Arizona. At the time, he was a space shuttle commander and was bringing supplies up to the space station when his brother was up there, and they would compare them because they were twins. What was happening to Scott physically and where was Mark physically. When I was reading the book, I got to the chapter when he started talking about his sister-in-law, the assassination attempt on his sister-in-law, Gabby Giffords, and what it felt like to be on the space station and have that horrible thing happen. And I think 6 people were killed in that assassination attempt. And that was February 18, 2018, which was the same day as the Parkland shootings in Florida, where 17 high school kids were killed. And a short period of time later, I heard Senator Womack talking about his children down in Atlanta apparently at their school, they had an active shooter incident, and he was talking about how terrible he felt not being able to be with his children. He was in D.C. at the time and not being able to help them. And the story began to germinate out of that. And I tried to write the story. It's written in a very realistic style. I don't try to explain how the aliens do what they do, but there is the willful suspension of disbelief, and I figure that if people can watch the Transformers or Superman, they can suspend their disbelief a little bit. But I wanted everybody to be represented and represented fairly. I believe that the military is represented fairly. Even when I go back and read the book, I see that everybody in it has their point of view and is understandable. But what you begin to understand is it's a mirror of who we are now, where we're at, and the dilemma that we find ourselves in. And one thing that ended up being, because when I talk about these aliens, they're very advanced. It's like Arthur C. Clarke used to say, any technologically advanced civilization could actually have such technology that to us it would be magic. And I wanted everybody to be able to see themselves in the book and to understand their point of view. Yet at the same time, I see these aliens that they had AI, that they saw AI as a creation equivalent to themselves. They are basically creators. They treat it as almost like a baby. They teach it morality. It's evolutionary. It may be our evolution. And what happens to them eventually is they merge with their AI, and they go beyond that. We could be those aliens in future years if you give people education, if you give them health care, if you help them, if you spend some of your money to help people. I really see this as a two-sided mirror of us now and what we could be if we make certain choices.
Tom, I want to now transition to the aliens. I think it's first and foremost, like a story about aliens coming down is by no means new, right? It's been all around pop culture. It's something that we are constantly moved by. We see it in movies. We see it in different books, video games, you name it. So that is not a new concept, like what if aliens came? But your novel, it asks a more specific and, in my opinion, a much more provocative question. What if aliens came and their sole demand was that we fix ourselves? Now that I think is crucial because it's going to force people to look inwardly. Why is this happening? What can we do to fix that? I'm curious, when you were writing it, what was the most challenging implication of this question that you explore in the book?
I want to bring up a couple of things. My first wife was a brilliant writer. I met her at Illinois when I was in the master's program, and then she went into the doctoral program at Florida State. In acting directing theory was her focus. And she was a 4.0. I was told by the head of her doctoral program that she was probably the best doctoral student Florida State had up to that point.
Wow.
She was an excellent writer. I did not consider myself an excellent writer, at least that I don't. I still struggle with that. But eventually she would tell me that I was a storyteller. But I'd lived in, I think, 15 different states and about 22 different cities. We were living in Seattle. We bought our first home, and Dale's mom, who was a very Christian woman, she was originally from Louisiana, very Cajun. Dale was Cajun, the epitome of Southern grace. And her mom visited us for a week and was just bashing communist China. And I looked at her, and when she left, we took her to the airport, and we got back to the house, and I looked at Dale, and I said, your mom is as Christian as she is, wouldn't know Jesus if he walked up and slapped her in the face. And Dale looked at me and she said, now there's an idea. And I ended up writing a book called Resurrection Encounter about some aliens whose star goes nova or is going nova, and they're looking for another planet. And they come across a planet, they decide they can restock their ship out of what they see, and they bump into a guy named Jesus. And they start monitoring him. They put a transponder on him. One of their aliens goes down and follows him around, and they start to understand him and not understand the politics of the time. And when it comes to the crucifixion, they actually drug him on the cross. They pull him out of the tomb. They bring him up to the spaceship, and through, as with relativity, moving forward in time, they take their spaceship and they bring him to the 21st century. And they drop them. By that time, there's a nuclear explosion in Beirut, and Jerusalem is threatened, and Jesus ends up right in the middle of this, and the whole world is, half the world believes, half the world doesn't, and the same things start happening again. I wrote it in 1999. I talked to somebody, I think last year, they couldn't believe I wrote it in 1999, but Dale's comment to me after that, she said, given your background in church and in high school, she said, it's no wonder that your point of view is alien. And I started to understand what that meant. And I think the same is true of Tranquility Moon. There are similarities.
People, understand the conversation has just begun. Tom, you introduced AI into the discussion, and that is a fascinating concept as well. Maybe the aliens are a type of artificial intelligent life form. Listen, it can get deep. It can get philosophical. This is a discussion that is fascinating to me, and I know it is for so many of you out there. You gotta head on over to Amazon and Barnes & Noble, pick up copies of Tranquility Moon, read the book, but start the discussion. Tom, thank you for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.